thank you for meeting with me today to talk about this preprint. So can you tell us a little bit about what MedRxiv is and in general what a preprint is, since a large part of our audience might not be aware of what this is?
So a preprint server is a platform that enables you to put up a manuscript pre-peer review. So imagine you've spent a lot of time doing a study, you've finished the study, you're ready to send it in to a peer review publication. Traditionally, it'll take months, and if it's rejected, it may take a while for you to then resubmit it, go through cycles. We found that it often can take a year or more for an article, once it's been completed, to pass through the peer review cycle. Now, peer review can be very helpful. It can help you improve an article. It can give you feedback. It can make it better, make it more suitable for public consumption. But it also delays the opportunity to share it with other scientists, to help people understand what you're doing and where you are, to be able to get peer review from the entire world on the work that you've got in progress. Our scientific meetings provide this kind of opportunity. We go to scientific meetings and often present things that are in progress. We give oral presentations or present posters and get feedback. But that's only episodic. Every once in a while we go to one of these meetings. The idea here is that when you have work that's ready to be described and is enough that you would want to get feedback publicly, then it gives you a chance to immediately put it on a platform and to be able to let the world see it. Mm-hmm. What's important is to convey that this is pre-peer review. This is preliminary information. That it hasn't been vetted in the ways that peer review publications have. But the notion is that this will accelerate research, accelerate communication, enable us to know what other people are doing, because when I'm doing research, it's really important for me to know whether I'm replicating what somebody else is a little bit ahead of me or to learn what from other people are doing. And if I'm just depending on the peer review publications, then I'm maybe years behind what people are actually working on. And finally, in fields like physics and economics and astronomy and a whole range of others, that's how it works. I mean, if you're in the world of big data and machine learning and you just depend on peer review publications, you will never catch up to the cutting edge of the field. And so this is an idea of trying to do this for clinical medicine. Can we create a platform where we can exchange information better, faster, and make it more widely available so that we can accelerate the progress?
Yeah, that's a great point. So what are the detractors saying about this preprint in clinical medicine? What are the concerns that they have about such a thing existing?
Well, I think that there's been two major concerns that have been raised about preprints in clinical medicine and public health research. The first is that because the research is coming out before peer review, that some findings which are misleading or misinterpreted are going to potentially mislead the public and lead to clinical decisions that aren't based on the soundest of science.
Right.
The second is just in general, does science need to even move this quickly?
Yeah, and I think that these concerns shouldn't be any different than the concerns that occur in our scientific meetings. And often the press will be reporting a poster or an oral presentation that doesn't even have the kind of depth of information that a preprint would have. And I think we have a deep respect for the idea that this preprint server, MedRxiv, needs to be attentive to the potential harms that it could cause. Look, our first imperative is to do no harm with this. And so we're very careful to ensure that there are some things that we're not going to touch. I mean, if we have any concern that posting a preprint may lead to untoward effects on the public's health, then we'll probably tell people that might be better off going to a peer review angle. But we do believe that the slowness with which information is communicated takes a toll on the progress of science, and that we can get the best of both. This can complement the peer review system, so that people can know what work is in progress. We can tell practicing docs, look, this is not intended to be information for you to act on, but this is to help you be aware of what people are working on, and that by the time it gets to peer review, it may look very different, but that it gives you a sense of what kind of work is in progress, and that we can both take advantage of that kind of conversation, that interchange, that access to information, and yet at the same time sequester it from saying this is not peer reviewed. The peer review is occurring once it's posted. People are making comments, but it's intended to show people at work in progress.
So what are you going to do to vet the things that are submitted to MedRxiv, and then how will you handle the comments? Are you going to edit those, or how will you make sure that the stuff that's on there is quality science?
So I'll start. We have a number of safeguards that we've put in place to ensure that when a preprint is posted, that it meets certain criteria. So first, when a preprint comes in, there's a plagiarism check. There's somebody who's looking at it, at the administrative level, making sure that it's, not gobbledygook and it's not, offensive material. Then, as part of the submission process, every author of a preprint is asked to disclose their names, the affiliations, the conflict of interest statement, essentially following the suggestions that have already been laid out by the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors and sort of what is supposed to be submitted as part of any manuscript. Right. We're going to follow a lot of those same requirements for a preprint. Then, as in a sort of a special safeguard, particularly in the learning phase, as we're going to gain a better understanding of it, our core team, along with an editor at the BMJ, are going to be looking at every submission that comes in. Because we're really attuned to the concerns that people have voiced around misleading information being propagated through the preprint server. So we're going to be looking at that.
But what's to stop a reporter from coming and saying, okay, I'm not going to wait for the embargo on this paper that's coming out in Journal of Neurology. Instead, I'm going to go back to the preprint where it was first published and report on that.
Yeah.
So
well, information is everywhere, and we're not going to stop people from talking about the information that gets posted on MedRxiv. But we have put some cautionary statements that will be put on papers so that clinicians and the media are aware that these papers are articles that are pre-peer review. They have not yet undergone the peer review process, and we do discourage the media from reporting on it. We don't think, they're going to be able to, they're going to want to, I'm screwing up how to say this, but the media is going to report on it if that's their prerogative.
Well, and we're not in,
take that one away.
Yeah.
I can't quite figure
we
out.
won't. We're going to keep this whole thing in.
Okay.
but let me say that we're not in complete agreement about this, because I believe that the media may want to report on some of these things. That a responsible media will report on it appropriately and say that this has appeared in a preprint. It's provocative. It's interesting. It may have implications. It's work in progress.
It may change. Yep.
And they may also report on some of the comments that are saying. They may also ask other experts to actually peer review it. Like, what do you think of this? Where is this going? What are the possibilities?
Yeah.
So, we are seeing this at major scientific meetings. We just had ASCO finished, and there was a whole raft of media around things that aren't yet published. And, again, in the proper context, I think it's useful. It just needs to be with caveats. But as everyone knows, just because something's peer-reviewed doesn't mean it's true either.
One thing that I think is really interesting that I'm sure you've given a lot of thought to is the fact that, I don't see a reason that in 5, 10, 15 years, these preprints won't just take over the journal publishing world, because they're faster, like you say, and there's no reason for journals to be so slow, except for the publishers behind them have limitations on issues and all these other things. So, and knowing that peer review of a sort is taking place on these preprints through the commenting section, what is it that you think will preserve journals in the future, if you do think they'll be preserved?
In the end of the day, there will be a small number of high-quality journals that are well-resourced, that are providing a real public service, that they are able to do a deep dive, and they've got really talented editors and illustrationists, and are able to raise the level of a important paper, a consequential paper, in ways that are hard to do within the context of a preprint server, and prove their worth. Prove their worth. But we've got a lot of journals. I mean, there are a lot of journals and a lot of publications that aren't well resourced, and for whom the bar is not, so high, and are not able to provide that level of post-publication processing, and aren't able to substantively elevate the article to a great extent just because of practicalities. And I think that the preprint server may end up replacing a large swath. I do think that there will remain, the very best journals, and like I said, resourced journals, ones that can really make an investment in each article. I believe there still will be a place for that. They do provide a very valuable service. But the other question is, given the large number and expansion of journals we've had, is there enough good science, or would preprint servers be a better way to disseminate the vast majority of those papers, and then reserving, for the journals, those that are really ready to go the next level?
What should we expect to see when MedRxiv launches on June 25th?
Fireworks? No, that's premature.
Well, I think when we're going to begin accepting submissions now, and so we're hoping to get a number of submissions to cultivate them and build up the platform. On June 25th, we'll go live, so we'll have some segment of papers that have gone through the process and are posted, and opportunities for engagement and for other affiliates to engage. And when bioRxiv first started, it was 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, it started slow. We're hoping to start a little faster, and we'll see where it goes.
So what's the business model for MedRxiv?
I think it's a great question. And, as we began thinking about this and the benefits that this would accrue to the scientific enterprise if we were able to launch a preprint server, we thought long and hard about, well, how do you make this work? How do you make it sustainable? And the success of bioRxiv was an inspiration to us. We were able to look at this. A nonprofit, Cold Spring Harbor Laboratories, was able to launch a preprint server in the biological sciences that has become enormously successful and was able to attract funding from foundations and others who believed in the notion that we should be making science, disseminate faster and to be able to open up the opportunity for peer review posting for a preprint. And so we've worked closely with them, and they've put in resources, we've put in time, BMJ has put in time and has made available a medical editor. And at this point, what we're hoping and what we've heard from others is that there's interest. If we can show that we can make this a go, then there are nonprofits, there are foundations and others who are interested in being supporters and seeing this go for society's benefit. And so, the business model is really not to charge researchers, not to charge access by the public or other researchers, not charge researchers for submitting or for viewing or for the public, but to try to treat this as a common community good and to see whether or not we can attract funds in that way. And we're optimistic because of what's gone on with bioRxiv, and we've already heard from groups that are interested. So the business model is pretty simple. I mean, it's to try to create a public utility, try to create something, but without charging, and to try to depend on the generosity of donors who see this as a fundamental way to help advance science and bring us closer to better medicine, better cures, better quality of care in more expedient ways. So that's what we're thinking.
Great.